Hi, Adam. I'm happy to have you with us. I'm just saying to the audience that you stood up early to be available for doing a presentation on beta access. So thank you very much for your special commitment. I have no idea what time of the day it is for you at home, but it must be pretty early. It's
8 a.m. So yeah,
8 a.m.
Not too bad.
Great. Adam, thanks for various dimensions for doing this presentation today. First of all, as I said, it's not the usual business hours where you are linked to us today. On the other hand, at least since your legendary presentation at the last share in the US for speaking about containerization, you are more or less famous face for beta systems explaining complex material in an understandable way that even me can understand what is in the products. So I think we really are lucky that you're joining us today to speak a little bit about the news from beta access. And I introduced it that it is really a product for many of our customers. It is unbelievable, or it is not possible to miss that product. It is business critical for the administration of the RUCF system. And so I'm very sure that people will listen very concentrated on what you're saying the next half an hour. Thanks for that.
Okay. Thank you so much. And yes, look forward to being able to explain things and live up to the standard you just set for me, Niels. Thank you. But just wanted to say welcome and thank you to all of you for joining our session today to really discuss Lighthouse and the new generation of our beta access solution. And I think it is important that I start by saying that I'm sure many of you have already noticed and you've heard throughout the day about some new colors, new branding, and even a new logo for all of our solutions, including beta access. But I want to assure you and please know that the newest version of our beta access solution really does offer much more than just a new logo, because we have developed new features that truly add value and support your growing needs to enhance and improve security measures across your enterprise systems and to really help you meet those never-ending compliance requirements that you have, especially from a security perspective. And our team has heard your feedback over the last few years, implemented important functional improvements that we'll be discussing in just a bit. But first, I do want to do just a brief review of a couple of things regarding beta access, as we have a very diverse audience today, and I just want to be sure that you all understand really the context of the material and the content that I will be covering. So very briefly at a high level, at Beta Systems, of course, you know, we have over 40 years of experience that we've been empowering and enabling people to seamlessly automate workloads across their enterprise systems, and we do this with software solutions that address these key challenges that many organizations still face today around how to simplify data flows across your enterprise systems, how to automate as many steps as possible in every business process and workflow, and then finally, how to ensure all decision-making information is delivered to those stakeholders and it's in a usable format. It's accurate and it's securely accessible. And secure accessibility is really important, and sensitive data really is what brings us to our beta access product. It is our long-standing solution that's designed to make RACF administration, auditing, and reporting much easier and intuitive for various levels of end users. And from a security perspective, especially on the mainframe, where so much of your critical and sensitive business data is stored, our goal is to empower and enable you to do your job more efficiently, more effectively, and ultimately to provide the tools and the functionality for security professionals that they need to keep their organizational data as secure as possible. So with that in mind, let's jump into what is actually new in beta access and the benefits that you can expect when you upgrade to our latest version. So the first of what we see as, say, the most valuable feature updates in beta access and is that really it supports administration of MFA, also known as multi-factor authentication. Now, most of us are at least quite familiar with having multiple methods of validating and authenticating our login information to various systems and other online and perhaps personal accounts that you have. And for the mainframe, it really should be no different, and it's important that we provide a clean, simple, and intuitive way to administrate and set up RACF MFA authentication on ZOS, because doing so gives some benefits. Number one, it significantly reduces the risk of unauthorized access to sensitive data. Through the use of factors such as tokens or biometric features, it's more difficult for attackers to gain access even if the password's compromised. It enables better fulfillment of compliance requirements such as GDPR or PCI regulations via your additional security measures to protect sensitive data. And additionally, their MFA offers users really a choice of different authentication methods without compromising their user experience. So in short, you now have the new administrative option under both the user and resources menu for managing your multi-factor authentication. We also even extended the user history data table to accommodate this update, and we've enhanced our maintenance commands to cover it as well. So moving on to another important update, we now support administration of the password phrase interval. While use of the password phrase has been around for a long time, it was relatively recent since IBM released the password phrase interval, which is important because it provides the ability to say set an interval specific to the password phrase instead of just inheriting the same value from the standard password change interval that you have. So what does that really mean for you? Well, it allows customization of your password phrase interval according to your company's security policies and individual requirements. It's simple to update from our intuitive beta access interface and command line options. You can set automated notifications to inform users of upcoming password phrase changes, especially doing so in a timely manner. Plus, it provides comprehensive reporting capabilities to monitor the interval for really your compliance needs, and helps you easily perform additional audits. Now, one more key highlight that I'd like to mention is that we've enhanced your reporting capabilities specifically through some significant updates to the Get Data API command that's available to you. But in case you are not familiar with this pre-existing functionality within beta access, and I know that many are not, the Get Data command allows you to retrieve important but sometimes overlooked security information across your RACF and ZOS environment. And based on a lot of user feedback, we have made substantial enhancements to enable security administrators to use this command to help create even more detailed reports than were available before. And not just in your standard ISPF interface, this enhancement really extends to make our Windows tools like Beta Report, previously known as our report generator, and our RACF drawdown facility for deep security analysis. It's making those even better. So let's say walk through a couple of examples of the benefits so that you have some better context as to what I'm really talking about here. So for those familiar with beta access, you already know about our main menu screen and the environment option. That's option 6. And under that option, you have the ability to view some data that's related to, say, searching for a best matching profile, finding out a list of data sets that are protected by a profile, or even searching through relationships of resource protection methods. So with the updates that we've made to our Get Data command, you can think of these already existing data tables as new reporting options that are in your toolbox. Plus, we took this a step further, and there are some built-in sample reports that are available for you. So that translates to a few key benefits that you won't want to miss once you have access to our new software version. One, you can, say, define custom events, create detailed reports, and specify actions, and even manage RACF event control data really all in one location. You have the ability for precise configuration and simple adaptation of these new reporting options to really meet those security policies, perhaps internal to your company. And finally, it enables customizable directory service calls. Now, I'd like to move into some additional key updates that really are new capabilities that are included with their newest version of beta access. And these features provide, say, user-friendly and valuable options for enhancing how you manage the security elements across your system. So first, support of data set encryption keys. Anytime we say the word encryption, at least for me, I think we all immediately think secure or security. And then we start to think, okay, even if I don't know how the data is encrypted, I at least get the idea of what it should be doing or what's behind encryption. And as many of you know, on COS, IBM offers data set encryption as a way of preventing unauthorized access to data on disk. But the problem when using native RACF to manage this is that the definitions and the relationships of data sets and their encryption keys can be quite complicated. Everything needs to be defined using sophisticated RACF commands, which again can certainly lead to some unwanted configuration errors. It's also not very easy to see or visually understand the connections and relationships of the encryption keys with the data sets and users. And also it's challenging to, say, copy, clone, or just make larger updates to some of your existing definitions. But within beta access now, we've given you the ability to make complex RACF updates to the DFP segment of a user. That's also known really as the resource owner, where the data set encryption key label field, which we call data key, as you can see here on the screen, it's available for common functions that you're already familiar with in beta access that you can actually take advantage of, such as just basic querying, adding, changing, deleting, and more. So next we have log database control. This one is quite interesting because if you have any experience with managing log files, you know the difficulty that is involved in such a process. In this case, we recognized, say, a few different needs that were important that we needed to address. First, no one wants to see that completely avoidable error that says something like your database is full, especially when the system is under a heavy load from lots of activity and it's during a critical period in your workload cycle. Additionally, we always want the ability to access a complete log of events, such as periods of time when there are lots of RACF commands being executed. And then finally, DASD storage costs really can be quite expensive. So if you actually find that you can reduce the space that's required to maintain your log database, you really want to have the ability to take advantage of those cost savings when and where you can. So overall, with this new feature for log control, you will now have a complete record of all user activities, including the associated RACF commands, where you can avoid problems when demand and usage of your system is high by automatically unloading log generations. And this also provides the potential to even reduce costs through reduced storage needs. Plus, you're going to have the easy ability to, say, undo and roll back or access to those undo and rollback functions anytime you've made a mistake, and it just makes cleanup a lot easier. So moving on to number 3 here, we have repeat check of security events. So what does this actually mean? Well, first, the purpose here is to enable the precise configuration and adaptation of security policies really to your ever-changing requirements, especially when we think about STIG reports. So we can think of it this way. If you have a specific security event and you want to monitor when something happens, you want to be able to not just monitor, but then take action. But the problem is you may be getting way too many of these alerts and actions because of something like false positives, or the criteria for triggering that action. It's not really refined well enough so that you end up really wasting time on a bunch of events that perhaps are being investigated when in reality you're chasing down nothing more than, say, security spam. And with this feature, you can effectively tell RACF to weed out a lot of those unwanted events and really only alert you on the important ones, such as, like, let's say I want to trigger an action only if a user enters a word or a wrong password 3 times in the last hour. Or I want to trigger an action only if there are more than 5 faulty RACF commands that are entered today. So the bottom line here is that you can now create sophisticated sets of rules to effectively react only to important and relevant events, which means that you can configure actions to support STIGs and your audit reporting needs. And finally, from a new feature perspective, you now have the ability to install beta access using ZOSMF, also known as ZOS Management Facility. Now, historically, our ZOS-based software has only really been, a Rex-based installation, but now it's both. And I'd say with IBM's simple GUI-based workflow option for the installation of ZOS software, this improvement really can be a crowd pleaser for your teams who are familiar with ZOSMF, but especially with system programmers who may not have previous experience with our software. And it can even be very helpful, or say an alternative way for any of you who are supported by external vendors for installation and maintenance support. It's very helpful being able to have these different options for maintenance and installation. So up to now, we've covered the helpful benefits of some of the newer features of beta access. But now I'd like to go ahead and shift into the area of enhancements to existing functionality, because we really do believe in making good solutions great solutions. And these enhancements serve to expand the capabilities and the value of familiar functionality in our RACF management tool suite. So let's start with, say, custom fields for resources. Now, you may or may not be aware of custom fields in RACF. So just for clarity, these are fields that exist within the RACF database for storing security information of your choosing about users and groups. And these fields have already been supported by beta access. However, we've now expanded our support to include these custom fields of data set and resource profiles. So effectively, this means we've enhanced our database and provided you with a complete set of commands, such as searching, making updates, that you can effectively run against all custom fields, along with enabling you to store additional security relevant information about data set and resource profiles without needing to use native RACF. Now, our next enhancement is really around performance improvements for how we handle processing of SMF log stream data. Now, I know that sometimes when we hear about performance updates to any software, we are not too interested in it because often we feel like, okay, well, that sounds good, but we can't really see it. And though you may not be able to physically see it, if you have ever dealt with the loads of important SMF data and experienced the delays that can occur when trying to load or analyze large amounts of it, you may have at least felt the lag in performance. So what have we done here? Well, we've optimized the process loading, or the process for loading of SMF data. We've built better conversion routines, and we've created a path for faster direct access to SMF data. But the bottom line is here, what is the actual result for you? The result is faster response times and potential for reduced CPU usage. In fact, in testing, we've seen up to a 50% decrease in CPU consumption, which of course for you translates to potential cost savings. Now, finally, we've added various small improvements to beta access, all with the intent of making a quality user experience for the security administrator. Now, just as one example of this, for those who are perhaps, say, experienced RACF administrators out there, you can now track the deletion of discrete profiles by RACF with added validation checks to really ensure the correct RACF commands are generated when handling those discrete dataset profiles. This absolutely increases visibility for audits and compliance because, for those that may not be aware, discrete profiles by default are automatically deleted by RACF when the associated protected dataset is also deleted. So the bottom line is here, you're able to track their removal, which is very helpful for visibility, observability, and just overall compliance. Now, I think for today, that really does cover the key updates, the new features, and some of the valuable enhancements that you can expect from our newest version of beta access. Of course, if you have any questions, if you need any additional information about the content that we've covered, please do reach out to us. An expert will certainly be ready to support you, to help answer questions, to get on a call and either do a demonstration or maybe have a discovery call to explain more in depth about how some of these things can, say, improve your experience. But I just want to thank you all for joining us, and also just, I guess, Niels, if there's anything that you have a question about, feel free to ask. But thank you. Thank you for your time. Yes.
The two of us can listen, but also the audience can hear us, so that's good. Thanks for doing the presentation, Adam. That was a lot of information. I personally, to be honest, my personal favorite is the repeated check before creating an event, because for me as a novice, I'm not a RACF administrator, but I can imagine that there is clearly a paralyzing over-information from such systems that you always get notifications and alerts. So if you can control that a bit better, I as a novice, would have an understanding that there is value. Do you have a special feature where you're saying, oh, that's my private favorite, which one you preferred the most?
I would say, I think that one, and oddly enough, I think the log database control is interesting for me, really being able to kind of manage logs better. I think that we see, especially as an organization, we see issues with how organizations manage logs, and often it's an avoidable error, it's an avoidable mistake in terms of management, and it creates a situation where the database is full, or it creates errors that are sometimes hard to track down because they can't quite figure out what's causing the issue. And I think having that, it's almost like a safety net that's in place.
Good point.
Just as a way of not having to deal with that.
Listening to you and in preparing the slide decks as well, to some extent, I get the feeling MFA is quite a beast. That is, if companies try to implement MFA for the mainframe, it's nothing you have done overnight. It must be really severely planned and implemented, because there are lots of things to consider in order to have MFA ready.
Absolutely, yes. I think certainly there's a lot of planning internally for an organization, and of course it's functionality that's part of RACF. But the fact that you now have, say, an easier, more intuitive interface to really manage it, or even a more familiar interface for those already using beta access, of course, I think it makes it quite simple to, as you're making those preparations, if you haven't implemented it, or if you have, being able to review your internal policies and just how it's set up and configured, makes it quite simple using beta access now.
Thanks again for being with us today in the morning or in the afternoon, depending on where you are. Looking forward to see you soon, and have a good day. Speak to you soon.
Thank you very much. Bye.